Better with Landmark and People's Bank and Trust, but they put people first. I'm in studio with Pawnee School District Superintendent Tim Croneville. Welcome back to the program, Mr. Croneville.
Well, thanks for having me again. Appreciate it.
It's great to have you here. So tell me a little bit of an update for what's going on in the school district. I understand that you've been looking at possibly upgrading a building or two. How's that been going?
Yeah, that's been an ongoing process. And, every month since October when this discussion started, our school board has been having some discussions on how we can improve our district, whether it be internal improvements, whether it be buildings, whether it be facility changes. So the last month we decided that we were going to go with a feasibility study. So it'll take a couple months to take a look at, but what that will do is help us make a decision whether it's more cost effective for us to actually build a brand new school or do renovations and additions. So, hopefully it'll give us some direction. I do know that obviously we want to do something to improve our school district. So we'll see how the study comes out.
Remind me, which building is this that we're talking about here?
Well, obviously, if it's a whole school, it's all the
Right.
buildings. But we've talked about building an elementary school and a possible gym addition. Those are the two big projects right up front with possible HVAC upgrades.
Sounds very exciting for the district, too.
Yeah, I think it is. We have not had any type of construction since 1977. We've done small internal improvements, but it is exciting. Again, not that we're getting huge as a school district, but with any buildings as they continue to get older, there are upgrades that need to take place. With the many different energy saving options out there today, it's just something that we really need to look for our district for the long term.
Shifting away just a little bit, how are you doing with teachers right now? I understand statewide and actually nationwide, there's a shortage of teachers. How's that been on Pawnee School District?
We're the same as other school districts. It's difficult to find candidates. Basically, what's happening anymore is that we're stealing from other districts. Someone wants to leave a district and comes into our district, or we lose a teacher that goes to another district, and then they have that shortage. I currently have a PE driver's ed position that's been open for several months. I say back in the day, and I don't feel that old, but when I was applying for jobs back in the late 90s, I was a social studies teacher. You might have 50, 60 candidates, PE positions. You could get close to 100 different candidates that would be trying to get into your district. And, currently I have two. Mm-hmm. And those jobs, again, were the ones that usually were the easiest ones to fill. And you get into English or foreign language, even math positions, you might not get any candidates. And then you're scrambling to try to figure out what you're going to do. And the state's trying to address that. Mm-hmm. I finally saw one of the representatives put a bill out there about maybe some tuition reimbursement. And I've been talking about that for years, that, a lot of businesses give you those bonuses. They'll pay for your tuition as long as you stay in that company for 3-4 years, and then you don't have to pay it back. Realistically, education needs to do that at this point, to where you pay for teachers to go to school. And if they stay in Illinois and teach for so many years, then they don't have to pay that back. I mean, that's just one superintendent's idea, and that still might not solve the problem, but it's a serious problem across the state for sure.
Again, this is just one superintendent's opinion, but what do you feel has been the catalyst of this shortage?
Education has become increasingly difficult to do. Not that the teaching has changed, but the amount of stipulations that are placed on educators today. We just got an update about last month of all the new laws that our General Assembly is going to pass, and it's like 30 pages of new laws. And every year you're talking 20, 30 new laws to regulate what you have to teach, how you have to teach it. And it makes it more difficult to do your job. Mm-hmm. And, even though pay is gotten better, teaching still is not a higher paid profession. So when you have young kids coming out that could go into the trades and make a lot of money right up front, or go the traditional route of the 4-year school, and get into a different profession and still make more money, um, you know, people don't want to do it anymore. And there are so many options for young kids today that teaching is not one of the ones that people want to do. And we find more candidates that have always wanted to be a teacher. They're not just at the last minute deciding to be a teacher, which is good. You get dedicated people. There's just not that many people out there that have those feelings still today.
You mentioned some of the I guess measures or laws or whatever you want to call them from the General Assembly that they're going to pass. I know from other superintendents in the area, it's anything from, at least on their list of gripes, it's anything from the foreign language requirement to simply just not asking, hey, the people like you on the ground level, what would work for schools like you? So I have to ask you, what is your take on all of this coming in? I know it's long. Yeah, what do you think?
Well, it's probably a popular opinion for superintendents, but not for the General Assembly, but local control. Allow each school district to make the decisions that's best for their community. I mean, what a Carbondale High School needs might not be the same as a Naperville High School. And, allow those communities, those elected school board members who know their community, know their region of the state, to make the decisions that's in the best interest of the school district. But that's not how it works. You have General Assembly members that we know are dominated from the northern part of the state. And, the Chicago area is a lot different from Central Illinois and Southern Illinois, and they pass sweeping legislation that applies to all of us that really might not make sense. I mean, you look at a school district and say, we're at 150 kids in the high school. We are lucky we have a foreign language teacher, but with the foreign language, you mentioned that requirement, you think of a small school district. How are you going to attract a foreign language teacher into your community to meet that requirement?
And it's also too one of the other factors of that. So much isn't even the teachers part of it too, but it's also the students, whether it's a student that might struggle with a foreign language, or maybe it's a student that has a packed schedule that might not be able to fit it in too. I mean, there's a lot of layers, and that's just one of the many different facets that the General Assembly has handed down to school boards.
It is. And I find it hard to believe that and I'll take my son, for example. My son is deciding he wants to go into the trades. He's had his foreign language because he's done what he's supposed to do. But I find it hard for a student like my son or anybody else that wants to go, say, work for O'Shea Builders and be in a union for the rest of their life, why they need French or why they need Spanish. And we're finding fewer and fewer kids that are going the traditional 4-year route. More and more kids are going into the trades, and some of the expectations of what they need to graduate high school is not something that is going to carry over into what they're going to do for the rest of their lives. And that just boils down again to having conversations with local educators about what is the needs that they need in their district and making good decisions. And it just doesn't quite work that way.
And too, it sounds like a lot like with, actually, I kind of lost my train of thought, and
That's all right.
It's a good.
That
Let's
happens.
just go ahead and take a quick break here. You are listening to the WTIM morning show. That's Pawnee School District Superintendent Tim Croneville. Your stream co-sponsored by Landmark of Taylorville, where you always do better with Landmark, and People's Bank and Trust, where they put people first. Back with more with Superintendent Croneville right after this. Welcome back to the WTIM Morning Show. I'm your host, Avery Cooper. Your stream co-sponsored by People's Bank and Trust, where they put people first, and Landmark of Taylorville, where you always do better with Landmark. It's great to have Pawnee School District Superintendent Tim Croneville in the studio to update us a little bit on some of the things the kids have been doing in the school. So what's been going on over the last month or so?
Well, we're at the home stretch now, into the fourth 9 weeks. Spring sports are in full swing, assuming the weather is going to cooperate with us.
That's the big if right now.
It is. Our baseball team played last night and won a tough game in Nokomis. Man, it was cold. you get spoiled with the 170-degree day, and then you go out there and play in 45-degree weather with 20-mile-an-hour winds. But baseball's off to a good start. Softball's struggling a little bit, but they're starting. We have junior high track kicked off. They have a lot of kids out. They've had a couple meets. High school track. Our arts program, the band and chorus are preparing for their spring concerts, which they'll be doing in May, which will be here before you know it. It's once the weather starts to turn, it becomes a little bit more of an exciting time, because I think people can see the finish line, but the weather changes people's moods. Obviously, we feel we're on the downside of the COVID, so that has kind of changed the mood in the school. So before you know it, we'll be at graduation and into the summer. It just, everything travels and seems to move so fast anymore.
What kind of concerts are coming up here in May?
We have our elementary school does a choral concert, and actually they do it on the same, and he would ask me, and I can't think of the date, but I know it's in May coming up. But our elementary school, Miss Amy Chambers, actually directs them. They will be doing a concert, and then after that, our band teacher, Mrs. Wright, will be doing we do 5th through high school band concerts, and the band numbers have been very good. Our choir numbers have been really good as well, and we'll do those spring concerts. We have a high school show choir that will be doing a concert. Usually very well attended. Again, high participation. In schools, we talk a lot about the athletics and the extracurriculars, but as we talked last time, we talked bass fishing the last time I was here. We're very proud of our arts programs as well, and Scholastic Bowl had a good season. So, for a small school district, we do offer our kids a lot of opportunities.
Yeah, you just mentioned the Scholastic Bowl. A little bit more details. How did they do?
They were 1 or 2 games over 500, which, when you look at the region that we compete in, it's kind of funny you mention that, because we've had some complaints as far as how far we've been driving for games, for not only Scholastic Bowl matches or basketball, baseball. It's becoming more and more difficult to find schools our size. Mm-hmm. So in order to do that, we have to travel farther. There was 1 week in basketball, we went to Pleasant Hill, we went to Beardstown, we went to Jacksonville route. Those are long drives for us during the school day or school week. But in order to find schools that we can compete against, that's how far we have to go. We're finding it as our school changes, it's more and more difficult to compete against Pleasant Plains and Williamsville, and even at the junior high level, we still play Rochester in some things. So, our Scholastic Bowl, I think, had a very good season, considering the schedule that they are part of.
You guys, correct me if I'm wrong, you're a 1A, right?
We are 1A.
1A, and what conference are you in?
We are in the MSM conference, and we used to be for years in the old Prairie State Conference, and it's hard to look at that now and think what that used to be, but that's what I grew up in. You had Mount Olive, you had Nokomis, you had Kincaid, Girard, Verdon, Williamsville was in that, New Berlin was in that at one time, and now you look at those schools and they've grown or gone different directions, and the Prairie State Conference doesn't even exist anymore.
Sounds like Pawnee, or a lot of Pawnee rather, would welcome a conference that looks a little bit more like that, as opposed to what you have right now.
Yeah, and our MSM is like schools.
Mhm.
Obviously, it's not a football conference, but we play Buffalo Tri-City, South Fork is in that,
Mhm.
Nokomis is in that now, Lutheran, Calvary, um, South County, which is
Mhm.
Waverly and Franklin. So I
Mhm.
mean, it is more like us.
Mhm.
But again, it's not football conference, but that's not as big a deal with us being in the 8-man football conference. But even with those schools with consolidation of sports in the MSM, you find different seasons where you cannot have conference sports. Track's a good one. We don't have a lot of schools that have track, so it happens. It's just the nature of how schools change, and you adapt, and you just continue to look to find opponents that are, as I said earlier, more like you.
Right. Exactly. Well, I think you can't really talk about the end of the school year without mentioning standardized testing. Don't have a ton of time to do so, but how is the district approaching standardized testing this year?
We're just about done. I know our elementary school is doing their level of testing here coming up I think it's this week or next week. It's kind of, in my opinion, again, one superintendent's opinion, it's kind of ridiculous. I know that we have to do it. The state wants you to do it, but with the last 2 years, we all can expect that our scores are not going to be very good, and it's
Yeah.
going to take us years to catch up from what has happened the last 2 years. Now, I know we want a benchmark of where we are, and as long as they look at it as a benchmark and not judging you as a school based on those scores, that's fine, but that's not always how it works.
Yeah. That is Pawnee School District Superintendent Tim Croneville. Thank you so much for coming on the program.
No, I appreciate it. It's nice. I forget how long I've been away. I know I talked to Mackenzie at the front desk, and she was a student of mine in 2001, and it's always fun to come over to Taylorville and run into people that I haven't seen in a long time, and it just tells you how old you've gotten.
You don't look a day over 30, sir.
Well, thanks. I appreciate that. It must be dark in the room.
Your stream co-sponsored by People's Bank and Trust, where they put people first, and Landmark of Taylorville, where you always do better with Landmark.